Welcome back. In this section we are going to start adding the eye socket to our fish shape. I want to give this guy some character, so I'm going to humanize him and cartoonize him a bit by giving him a humanoid type eye. To add the eye socket, we're going to need to lower the opacity back so that we can see through the model to the template image again. So right-click to exit Mesh Editing mode, and right-click again to re-enter Mesh Edit mode. This brings back up the Mesh Editor settings panel. Let's adjust the opacity to about halfway. With our model again see-through, navigate the view to nearly side-on, and select the nearest orthographic. Frame up on the head, select the Polydraw tool, and let's add the geometry going around the eye using the drawing as a guide. One thing that you'll notice differently than other times that you've used the Polydraw tool is that it self-completes if you add your cut on the starting point. Next, switch to the Add Edges tool and proceed to connect up the floating vertices to the nearest edges as you see in the video. We'll continue these edge loops out further later, but we want to keep the geometry fairly light until we get the basic shapes roughed in. As we'll see when we switch back to perspective view later, eyes are definitely one of those areas where 2D rarely translates well into 3D. So we're going to need a proxy object to model the eye socket around. Right-click to exit Mesh Edit mode and select the sphere primitive icon. Now click drag starting at about where you think the center of the eye would be, and size the sphere to almost the edge of the cut that we've laid out for the eye socket. With the sphere created, right-click in an empty space to exit the sphere primitive tool. In the info panel, set the rotation to 0 for Z, 90 for Y, and 0 for X. Now change the latitude and longitude to 16, which should be plenty for our needs. Now let's make the eye stand-in more easily distinguishable from our regular mesh. Let's change its edge and surface colors. Select the Settings tab. Close the panel for desktop settings since we don't need that panel right now. If the Scene panel isn't already visible, click on the 3D View's title bar to bring it up. Next, click the Show Object Attributes button. This displays the Object Render Attributes panel for the selected object. Let's enable Object Mode for the render attributes so that we can see our changes. Set the edge color to a light yellowish tone, and increase the opacity. With that done, let's switch back to the Panel tab. Now you'll notice that there's a bit too much light on our poor sphere, so let's select the two spotlights in the link editor and delete them. We really don't need them for modeling anyway. One thing that's really helpful about the link editor is that it allows you to keep all the objects in your scene visually organized for easy selection. Let's move the light brick so that they are together. And then move the sphere brick where we can see it. Now let's change the surface color of our sphere some so it'll stand out more as well. To do that, we're going to dive down into the sphere's shader brick. Click its orange square. Find the material list brick and click the orange square for that one as well. Find the material chunk and click on its orange square. Now find the solid brick. Notice that once it is selected, you can see its properties displayed in the Panel tab. This brick is the solid shader that the real-time Direct3D render engine is using to render the eye stand-in. Double-click on the Diffuse Colors color selector. Select a nice blue so that it will stand out from the fish mesh. Then click OK. Next, let's set its diffuse to 1.0, shininess to 0, and specular to 0 as well. This will give it a matte finish. With that done, click the orange triangle at the upper right corner of the link editor until we get back to the scene level. Next, let's position the eye stand-in. Select the sphere brick to make the sphere the active object. Now make the 3D view window the active window so that we can switch it back to perspective view. Navigate the view so that we have a better view of the stand-in object's position relative to the head. Use the object widget to pull the eye stand-in into the head until it's where the eye should go. With the eye stand-in in position, we can now move the vertices of the head to begin to create the eye socket. Select the fish and right-click to enter Mesh Edit mode. Move the opacity slider back to full so that we can see where the mesh intersects the eye stand-in. Now let's start grabbing vertices and sculpt a better fit for the eye. For the front part of the eye socket, we will need to pull the vertices in far enough that the pupil will still show when the fish is looking straight ahead. As we move around towards the back, to get these vertices behind or inside the eye, rotate the view around so that they can be selected on the mirrored side. Then pull the vertices out so that they are no longer behind or inside the eye. As you move a vertex, you may notice that one of the other vertices could be better positioned. That's what sculpting your mesh is all about. It's a process of tweaking vertices so that the connected edges define the shapes you want expressed in the mesh. Continue on pushing and pulling the vertices until you have a roughly shaped loop going around the eye. With the loop around the eye in position, continue to tighten it up so that it more closely fits around the eyeball. Basically, we want the edge loop going around the eye to be fairly even distance from the eye all the way around. This will lay out the basic geometry from which to build the top and bottom eyelids. With the basic shape worked out, let's pause here. We'll continue detailing the eye socket in the next section.